If you've been shopping for a Mustang GT and you're looking at all the performance options, then I suggest you take a look at the all-new Mustang Bullitt, because this is arguably the best Mustang buy at the moment. If you don't mind the green paint or the black paint available in the Bullitt and you want a manual transmission, this could be about $300 less expensive actually than buying a Mustang GT with the same sort of options that we have on this particular model. And of course, it's going to be a more limited run vehicle. It's going to make you feel a little bit more special. As long as you can find one for MSRP, that could be the tricky part. Under the hood, we find the same Mustang 5-liter V8 engine as the regular GT, but power is up by 15 horsepower to 475, although torque remains exactly the same as the regular model, but the torque and horsepower curve are changed just a little bit as well. That's because the Bullitt contains a lot of aftermarket options made by Ford as well as Ford factory options to help improve power. They've borrowed the intake manifold from the GT350. They've increased the throttle body size to an 87mm throttle body. You can get those two bits off of the performance catalog. Then they've raised the overall vehicle top speed to 163 miles an hour from 155. Then they've added everything that's included in the $4,000 performance package. That package adds the 6-piston brake calipers we see up front, some additional gauges on the inside, a limited slip rear differential back here with a different gear ratio, stiffer springs all the way around. We get various chassis braces standard in this model, summer tires of course all the way around, and a thicker roll bar out back. Then to make sure that the Bullitt sounds a little bit different than the average Mustang out there, we also get the optional active exhaust in the rear that you can get on your GT, but it is included on this particular model. The only real consideration to keep in mind with the Bullitt is that, again, it only comes in two colors, green, which is what we're looking at right here, and black as well, and only a 6-speed manual transmission. There is no automatic available in this model. On the one hand, I think that's a little bit of a pity because the average GT driver with the 10-speed automatic transmission is going to be faster 0 to 60 basically every time versus the Mustang, but it's not going to be as engaging. Ford has a wonderful 10-speed automatic transmission. I really love the way that vehicle behaves, but I have to admit that it's not quite as engaging as the 6-speed manual we find in this vehicle. But I also have to admit, on the other hand, that if I were buying a Mustang, I would probably get the one with the automatic transmission. I know that sounds horrible to say. You can all sound off about that down there in the comment section below. But the 10-speed automatic Mustang is just a great, well-rounded vehicle. It's fast, it's more fuel efficient than the 6-speed manual transmission, and although I would miss the ability to shift my own gears, I would say that it's probably the more practical option all the way around. Everything put together, the Mustang will set you back $46,595, which again is theoretically a little bit less expensive than a Mustang GT with all of the same gadgets and gizmos and options and upgrades that we find in this model. With that out of the way, let's take the Bullitt out on the road and see how it drives. If you love the Mustang GT, you are probably going to really love the Bullitt out on the road. But if you didn't really care for the Mustang, I don't think the Bullitt is going to change your mind. This is really more of the purest refinement of the Mustang GT. We have a suspension that's a little bit firmer, although I actually think it is still a really good suspension tune. I've really liked the way that Ford has set up the current generation Mustang, and even if I move this mode button all the way over to track, which is a little bit beyond Sport Plus, the suspension firms up, but it's not unlivable. Ford has done an excellent job at making this a great everyday driver, even in this Bullitt form. Now obviously the exhaust note is going to be a little bit louder because we do have that performance exhaust, but the sound that comes out of this 5-liter naturally aspirated V8 is absolutely intoxicating. Unlike many of its European competitors, this doesn't use a turbocharged engine in the high horsepower version. You can, of course, get that Mustang EcoBoost if you want a turbo, but that means that we don't have anything interfering with the pure exhaust note coming out of this V8 engine. It really does have an excellent sound. Handling has obviously been upgraded over the Mustang GT, but it's not a night and day shift. This is just an incremental improvement over what we see in the Mustang GT. We have a slightly stiffer chassis, and again we have that thicker roll bar in the rear, so we get a little bit less body lean in the corners and a little bit less body flex overall. But the Mustang GT already had those things very well under control. With the previous generation Mustang, it fell behind the Chevy Camaro, its closest natural competitor, in terms of overall driving dynamics. But this generation of Mustang is actually quite different, and I would say this really does feel very good even when pitted against entries like a BMW M3. And we weren't able to say that about previous generations of the Mustang. So if you're looking for one of the ultimate rear-wheel drive performance two-door vehicles, you should definitely put this on the same list as some of those European competitors. Now obviously the interior in this Mustang isn't to the same level as the BMW M3. I'm not talking about that level of overall refinement. I'm really just talking about the way that the Mustang drives. Of course, keep in mind that the Mustang is going to be considerably less expensive than many of those European sports competitors as well. When it comes to acceleration performance, you shouldn't expect a huge difference between this and the Mustang GT. With basically the same power output and just a little bit more horsepower under the hood and a slightly different ratio in the back, it's going to be largely the same as that lesser Mustang. However, it is worth noting again, as I said before, that if you were to get the 10-speed automatic transmission in the Mustang GT, it's likely going to win at the stoplight races every single time. Even if you use launch control in this model, the human factor is going to be the problem in getting fast 0 to 60 acceleration times. You might get them sometimes, but overall, this is likely going to be slower generally than that Mustang GT with the auto. Obviously, the automatic transmission Mustang is not going to be as engaging as a Mustang with a manual transmission, but it is going to be that little bit faster. Speaking of manual transmissions, I like the way the Mustang's manual is set up. The gear shifts are a little bit on the long side for a high-performance vehicle, but they're still relatively short in terms of general comparisons. And the rev match downshifts are a really handy feature. You can turn them off if you want to be more in control, but I like them for everyday driving especially. It just makes it a little bit easier to drive this in a more relaxed fashion. Previous generations of the Mustang were most at home on drag strips or on larger country roads, but this generation of the Mustang really is at home on winding mountain roads like the one that we're on here. It has a nice tight feel to it, definitely a lot more like some of those European competitors, as I said before. Now, steering feel obviously is a little bit numb because we do have electric power steering just like any other performance vehicle out there practically, but overall it's fairly well tuned. My bottom line with the 2018 Bullitt is, again, the same as our starting line. If you liked the Mustang GT and you liked all the performance options, you are really going to love the Bullitt. However, if the Mustang GT wasn't really your cup of tea, the Bullitt is not going to be either. But if my money were on the line and I were shopping for a Mustang, this is definitely the model that I would get. Let me know what you think about that down there in the comment section below. Also, head over to facebook.com/AlexNautos if you want to see what we're driving this week. Head over to patreon.com if you want to support our channel, and I'll see you later.